Hello and welcome to the debut program on the Elegance Online TV platform. My name is Malik Jones and the show, of course, is called Talk to Malik Jones. But before we delve into the program tonight and me introducing my guest, I want to take this opportunity and talk about the very platform on which I am on today. Elegance, as you know, is the name of a magazine that blossomed over the years with the CEO, Chinel Sar. She has been domesticating the magazine for the past years, and now she's gone global by talking to renowned people, not only in Senegal, but also in Nigeria. Our recent publication talks has on the front cover the Emir of Kano State and Emir Sanusi. She's also had on her front page the governor called Arek Besola, and also from the Gambia, Gambian IT guru, guy called Malik Khan, and also next door, Senegal. She's been able to put on her front page of this wonderful magazine, Senegal's First Lady, Madame Sall. Well, of course, Elegance has decided not only to concentrate on the print media, but also extend its media activities by bringing you an online TV platform. Elegance also has a lot to do with young people in the media, young people in business. So therefore, a series of programs are also in the pipeline. Among them is Watani Gudi RTC, which is also coming up very shortly. She's also got a program that looks at nightlife in the Gambia. It's called Goody Gambia. And of course, the breakfast show, which the CEO herself, Chilal, will be hosting. And of course, there's a news review program also coming up in Wolof, all on this network called Elegance Online TV. My guest, I'm sure eyebrows will be lifted very high indeed. I think a couple of stories very, very high. If I should tell you, those of you who follow social media, my guest is NYANG NJIE, Daddy, as most people will call him, Daddy NYANG NJIE, is my guest. And if you've been following social media, well, definitely that rings a bell because he has covered me a lot of times on his social media network. But that is not the issue, although it will come along in our discussion. But Daddy, please, NYANG NJIE, pleasure to have you on the show.
Pleasure's mine, Malik.
Thank you very much. But let us first of all look at who Daddy is. NYANG NJIE. Who is NYANG NJIE?
What you see is what you get. I'm an iconoclastic Gambian, a man with his own viewpoints, a man with divergent viewpoints relative to what society expects, and he holds his fort for being who he wants to be and the person he has charted for his own future.
Let's look at your family background. You're from Banjul, I suppose. Give us a detailed description of your family background. Let's know the person inwardly. Who is NYANG NJIE? What's your family connection?
Well, my family connection, as you know, my roots emanate from Senegambia, but our transition ended us in Banjul, and I'm from the Njie clan of Banjul, Jargan Njie on one side, and on the other side, I'm from the Duran family of Perseverance Street in Banjul. But yes, I'm a thoroughbred Banjulian, and I'm proud to be a Banjulian despite the state that our city is. You know, I'm proud to say that I hail from the city called Banjul.
Give me an address of the Giants in Banjul.
Well, to give you an address of the Giants will be something very difficult because the Giants occupy a lot of space in Banjul, but what we call Tatagi in Wolof is the fort, and that is Samjak and Lancaster to be precise. That is the base of the Njayan matriarch, and that's where, we hail from.
Are you related to Sol Njie, Pio Njie?
Well, P.O. is my grandmother's youngest brother, and by the way, like I said, NJIE and the NJIE clan is very diverse and extensive as it relates to its footprint in what we call Banjul.
Tell me about your young age, growing up in Banjul.
Okay, I grew up in Fajara. I was born in Westfield Clinic, but my friend Salutal will want to take my Banjul credentials and call me a combo boy. But I spent quite a lot of time in Banjul because I went to MPK, Methodist Prep, and I was a preppy boy. Mrs. Gibson, Mrs. Forbes, Mrs. Peacock, Mr. Warner, Mr. Tepps. These were the people who were very prominent in my formative years, and they did a good job in bringing the personality and the person that Gambia and the world knows today as NYANG NJIE.
So you'll remember Mr. Pai?
Oh, definitely. Reverend Pai taught me a little bit of music whilst at school, and I can fully remember going swimming with him once or twice. And Mrs. Patterson, or Miss Patterson.
NYANG NJIE's adult life.
Well, NYANG NJIE's adult life is very mixed. I spent half of my formative years as an adolescent in the US going to school, and I came back to Gambia after finishing school, and here I am today. So my adult life has a diverse orientation as it relates to my social orientation, my global outlook, and the person I am today is a culmination of the journeys, the path that I've taken over the past 22 years of my life.
I'm trying to look at your career, your work career, and I think I can remember you worked for Comium at one time. Did anything precede that?
Oh, definitely. I'm a public finance economist. I'm a macroeconomist. I worked at the Ministry of Finance with able people like Mr. Bamijan and Famara Jata of blessed memory, Mr. Mort Sekar, and these were people who allowed me to dirty my hands and learn what the tools of the trade of being a macroeconomist is all about. And I'm grateful to them for giving me an insight that a classroom would not have given me, but a real life experience.
Okay, finance and probably then Comium.
Then, well, as a consultant, I started work for Comium as a consultant before Comium became a company. You know, we had, it's called a greenfield. A greenfield is just an empty barren space. We had to do a license acquisition and prepare for the network and signing agreements across the country for where towers, antennas, sites, and everything are going to be. Yes, so I've been with Comium before it went live.
Give us a detailed background of your experience at Comium.
Well, at Comium, I did quite a lot of work, from being a business developer, from someone being, a product development specialist, creating products, and equally, I use my public ties within Gambia to make sure that I connect Comium with the powers that be and people who can facilitate the work of Comium in the public sector.
All right, NYANG NJIE, you're very active on social media. Now, just tell us what got you into social media? Facebook, Instagram, posting here and there, comments here and there. What actually propelled you into that?
Well, activism is part of being a member of a society. It's not always about political activism. It can be social activism. It can be cultural activism. It can be economic activism. But at some point in my life, I was just another private citizen living my life, and it got to a point the situation was untenable. As we all know, the Gambia we lived under with the brutal brute called Yaya Jammeh, something had to give in. And one day I sat down and said, what will I tell my kids if they ask me, Dad, where were you and what have you done? And that propelled me to have a voice. I know that I'm a good writer. I am a person who expresses himself adequately, so I decided to use my voice in furtherance of the Gambian ideal. And the Gambian ideal is a society of peace, equity, and a place where we respect the values and cultures of others, which I felt were missing in the Gambia of Yaya Jammeh, and that's what brought me into the social media space.
Now, some of your posts have been very, very alarming, and I should say, you tend to have voiced your antagonism to the Jammeh regime, as it were, in those days. But this came when Jammeh left. Or did you start your activism when Jammeh was in town?
Malik, I think you're very myopic. And the good thing about social media, once you leave your footprints on the sands of time, they're there to stay. I indulge you and I crave your indulgence to go back and look at when NYANG NJIE was writing. I didn't have to wait for Jammeh to leave because my dignity didn't allow me to sit down and suffer at the hands of a brutal brute who cared less about the very people who embellished him. So yes, I was writing when Jammeh was around, and I wrote even at the heyday. I mean, I'll tell you one blog. When lawyer Dabo and Co. were going to court, one of my famous blogs is called Set the Captive Free, or Set the Captives Free. This is way, way before the election. Jammeh was in town, and I was indifferent to his presence because at that point, I was immune to what was happening and something had to give in. And I knew that I wouldn't allow my dignity to be robbed by a non-entity like Yahya Jammeh. So I decided to write. And in writing, my family has been very worried. I mean, I've heard near misses, I've, nearly got kicked, picked up, and many other things. But fate had it that I was going down, and I believed in what I was doing, and the good Lord who was up above made sure I was safe from the treachery and the butchery of that brutal brute I call Yahya Jammeh.
You're still active on social media.
I have to.
We have a second, we have a new dispensation, which I'm sure you must see the ups and downs that it's going through. You must see the political landscape as it unfolds every day. What are you observing?
My observation is, collectively as Gambians, we voted Yahya Jammeh out. We didn't vote anybody in. The Gambians wanted Yahya Jammeh out, and out he went. Yes, what brought all the political players together was Yahya Jammeh. He was their common denominator. Now Jammeh is gone. There's a scramble and partition for power, and power right now is being shared. And the way power is being shared, people are trying to carve a niche. People are trying to get a slice of their pie. So yes, there is a lot of power play and political play going on, which for me defeats the purpose, because right now, if our political class really do care about the Gambia, the transition agenda should be forefront. We want institutional reform. We want legal reform. We want justice. We want reparations. We want to bring back the dignity of the Gambian and make sure that what kept Yahya Jammeh here is out, out, and out. Why? When Yahya Jammeh came, he came in with a social baggage, which I call a social deficit. His inferiority complex didn't stop at him, but followed many people who were angry with an old establishment, and they were not being rational in their decision making, nor the way they looked at Gambia. But at the end, some of the perpetrators turned out being victims themselves. So lesson learned for all Gambians that we may have our differences, but let's not look at the smaller picture. Let's always look at the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is called the Gambia.
Yeah, the Gambia is the bigger picture. But just let me take you back. I mean, you're looking that we have a coalition government or a transitional coalition government that started getting splintered, okay? The current president resigned from the party he hailed from, and his campaign slogan at the time was that he was going to run into office for just 3 years. Later on, we saw Minister X, Minister Y, Vice President that being relieved of their positions and their work. Did that ring any bell to you that, well, I'm seeing a transitional government getting into splinters?
Well, I think, Malik, you're even in a better position to answer this question because you played politics and played politics well under Jammeh. You have to realize one thing, Malik. Politics is a game of vested interest. Like I said, what brought these people together was smaller than what could keep them together long term. And now they're ruffling feathers. People are trying to reposition themselves. And in this repositioning is the greater good of Gambians that suffers. So what we are seeing right now is politics 101. I mean, Macky Sall, classic example. He came with a guy called ABC and many others. They all fizzled. That's the name of politics. It's called self-preservation. And he who lives and fight today lives to fight another day. But like I said, the biggest problem is the critical agenda of reorienting this country, putting this country back in perspective, is the lost narrative.
All right, let me take you to something very sensitive. With all this hullabaloo about politics here and there, we have an agenda, and that is the OIC coming up next year. And I don't know, if it does happen like that, for me, it will be a miracle.
Well, miracles happen, and I think it's because of a miracle you're sitting here, because you know exactly what people went through. And prior to the election of 2016, you saw your reporting on TV and how excellent it was for you, and you saw what happened. But it was a miracle because I watch TV. Equally, the OIC, the window is short. Senegal is the only country who's hosted the OIC in Africa. They had 4 years to prepare for it. Gambia, because of the election of 2016, lost a whole year. The Secretariat has been up and running for about 11 months, 10, 11 months, and I can safely tell you, we will do our best to improve on the infrastructure portfolio of this country. And it's not all about OIC. It's about boosting the public infrastructure portfolio of this country. So most of the things, we may get it under the guise of the OIC, but the execution will be post-OIC. And I'm grateful to the donors who are willing to put in and make sure that Gambia's infrastructure portfolio moves from one notch to a higher notch, thanks to our Muslim brothers within the Ummah and from all diverse countries. They are pledging their help and support for Gambia. So what we're doing is bigger than a summit, and I do hope Gambians get to understand that what Gambia wants is bigger than a summit, and it's just a launch pad to better days.
Could you tell us what your role is in the OIC secretariat, the local secretariat?
Well, I'm the head of brand and communication, and basically that's to position the OIC, make sure that the OIC has a positive image, that the Gambians tend to have to understand what's in it for Gambia, what's the expectation of the citizenry, and the way we project and put Gambia out there, because this is the biggest event other than the United Nations General Assembly. So therefore, it's a unique opportunity for Gambia to really reposition itself after losing significant brand equity thanks to Yaya Jammeh. Because if you were to go to Google all the way to December 15, January 2016, you type Gambia, 90% of what was coming was something that we are shameful of to associate with. So tis the time for us to reposition, rebrand Gambia, and we are not only doing it for a conference, but we will make sure that the world sees a significant positive brand equity for brand Gambia.
We are going through a very significant time in the politics of this country. All the political parties are going through their various congresses. And I'm sure your adversary, your so-called adversary, Jammeh, has been made the supreme leader, flag bearer of the APRC. What is that telling you?
What is telling me that there are still Gambians in this country who are insensitive to the plight of the average Gambians. I'm sure a name like Koro Cisse will ring a bell in your mind. A name like Solo Sandeng will ring a bell in your mind. And many, many other Njaga Giants and other unsung heroes of this country whose lives were curtailed by a brutal brute. So when I see Gambians, may I please finish? When I see Gambians who are very insensitive to this plight, and political machineries, parties, not talking about developing this country, but bringing back a wanton criminal, someone who has destabilized this country, someone who has traumatized Gambians. It shows where their interest lies. It's not to the greater good, but a very myopic interest that satisfies a very few who cares less about the Gambian ideal and the transformation of this country. And for those, each to their own, but it doesn't represent. Those views that happen over the weekend don't represent the broader interest of the average Gambian. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a storm in a teacup.
Well, everybody belongs to a political party. I'm sure they also have their own views. But away from that, I'm sure you're following all the parties as well.
Absolutely.
As they do their own congresses. Of course, the UDP held its own congress. Yeah. And very recently, I'm sure you must have followed the post of your colleague, spokesperson for the UDP, Almami Tal, and what he's talking about now, that Barrow should just respect his 3 years in transition. I don't know whether you saw that post.
I saw it and I read it.
What are your comments regarding that?
My comments is, number one, Mr. Tal is a private citizen, and the democratic plurality we're calling for and what we fought for ought to be respected, protected, and jealously guarded. It's his right. And you know what? If he wants to say even more than that, power to the people. That's the new Gambia we fought for. I don't know whether you fought for that, but that's what I fought for.
Well, we all believe in power to the people because this country...
So don't you think that Mr. Tal has a right to self-expression the way he sees fit and the way he deems fit?
Of course he does. Of course he does.
And that's exactly what he exercised. Of course. And the beauty is he has exercised it without impunity. And you know what? You know that during Jammeh days that would not have happened. So that's a plus for the new Gambia. It has its teething problems, but it's a budding democracy that's going somewhere, and we should be happy that we have something that is not too well, but is better than what we got prior to December 1st, 2016.
All right, let's simmer it down and look at something on a social note. Tell us about your social life.
My social life?
Yes. What do
I'm an avid adventurer.
By that you mean?
I'm a city boy who loves the bush. I'm a city boy who loves the beach. And I'm a city boy who loves the river. So when you want to see me...
You're married?
Am I married? No, I'm single.
Oh. By high time you get married anyway.
Well, are you married, Malik?
I am.
Happily?
Happily.
Wonderful. Kudos to you. Each to his own once again.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've never been married before?
Who, me? Of course I was married, Malik.
With a family, I'm sure.
Of course I have family. I have kids. I have two kids, beautiful kids for that matter.
Yeah. And the wife is still with you?
No. I just told you I'm single, Malik. I mean, Malik, I expect you to digest
I did.
my utterances. You ask a question, are you married? I said I'm single. So if you ask such a question, either you're intimidated or I'm just not getting it.
You're divorced. I understand you're divorced.
I am happily divorced.
Happily divorced. Anything else that you enjoy socially, sports, stuff like that? We're simmering it down.
Fishing.
You've been hitting up high and high, well, let's simmer it down.
I told you that I'm an iconoclastic Gambian. What you see is what you get, and I'm unapologetic about my lifestyle, views, and orientation. What the next person says is very insignificant to me, as much as I respect the will, wishes, and aspirations of others. I control my life and my narrative.
Well, we're talking about the Gambia today, the Gambia that you really want to see. But again, when you look at Gambians in general, I think I don't know whether you see the laissez-faire attitude that I see in most enterprises. We're giving away too much to outsiders to even run our country, run our economy. A lot of outsiders actually doing the things that we are supposed to do in our country. You've seen that.
Do you believe in your statement?
I do definitely believe in my statement.
Well, your statement was well alive in the past 22 years, Malik.
I go to the market
Well, hold on. You ask a question. Your statement was well alive in the past 22 years.
And I have cried
and
it
now
out.
Gambia is going through a phase. I don't expect a sudden U-turn because behavior is something that you nurture. Gambians are going through a phase of trying to have what you call economic nationalism and a sense of national pride, which Jammeh took away from us. He robbed the dignity of the Gambians. Hence the bootlicking we saw. Hence people be allowing themselves to behave subhuman. And these things will not change overnight. I think we have to be realistic in our expectations. What I expect in the current phase of the new Gambia is for this particular government to give me a new constitution, do reparations, and make sure the criminals who perpetrated crimes are all brought to book, and people who are victims are compensated not only financially, but make sure that we have memorials for victims who disappeared through enforced disappearances and many other acts that families are still crying about today.
Let us round up this discussion by looking at the platform that we are on today. I'm sure you know Chilal Saab, the CEO of the platform that we're sitting on, Elegance Online TV, and role in the print media. Before we sit here with this heated interview, anyway, what can you give a piece of advice to Chila and the organization she's running?
Well, I won't talk about her in person, but I will say that the democratic dividend that Gambians benefited when we went to the poll and said enough to that brutal brute is what we're seeing today, the plurality within the media space. We are seeing, TV stations mushrooming, newspapers mushrooming, magazines mushrooming. This is the Gambia we collectively fought for. And today, the likes of Chilel and many others like her are enjoying these dividends. And you know what? We need to make sure we jealously guard it, and not only guard it, but try and increase the space. But whilst increasing the space, we need to also re-educate and reorient the Gambian psyche. The Gambian psyche has been very sick. The Gambian psyche has been very beaten down, and the Gambian psyche has lost hope in terms of aspiring. So kudos to Chilean and many people like Chile, and I do hope that Elegance TV, this social media platform, which is a TV platform, can go to higher heights.
Your views well got in mind. Of course, our viewers, that was NYANG NJIE. Turbulent it was, of course, but he has where he stands. And NYANG wouldn't let you go without presenting to you. This is the latest edition of the Elegance magazine. You can see this one will make good reading because it's got the Emir of Kano. I'm sure you must have read a lot about the history of northern Nigeria, and the Durbar Festival is also in there. And I want to say thank you very much for your coming to our program. You were the first person on the show. We will always remember this interview, and thank you once again.
Well, Malik, before I leave, I just have a word or two for Gambians. See, life, if we don't learn from the past, will surely repeat the mistakes in the future. Everyone in the Gambia is a victim, and every square meter of land in this country is a crime scene. Let's come together and start building a country. And building a country starts with us building bridges.
Very well.
I've said a lot about you because I am very indifferent to what you believe and stood for. But in the new Gambia, we should give you space to thrive. And this is the Gambia I want to foster. This is the Gambia I want to propagate. And so long, Gambia. Good night.
Thank you. That was the man of the day, of course, my maiden guest, of course. I must say a big thank you to him for coming to our studios and give me this very good interview. I would like to say thank you once again.
It's a pleasure, Malik.
And don't forget, Elegance Magazine, now running, of course, 6 editions yearly. I think that's a tremendous achievement, and we're looking forward that this magazine will sooner or later come with every month an edition of itself. On that note, thank you for having me and my guest, NYANG NJIE. You enjoy yourselves, and bye-bye.
So long.